Okay, there we go.
You want us to start over, Deb? It's
Oh,
Linda
I'm
Camp.
so sorry. Yeah, wasn't prepared for this. They didn't tell me this. Okay. Deborah Carter.
Kim Salachar.
Linda Camp.
Amy Fulbright.
Ray Golick.
Adam Spector.
Ted Zimmerman.
Talby Roach with Metro.
Kevin Scott.
Patty Beck.
Okay, thank you. Toby, you can go ahead now.
Okay, very good. So thank you. So of course, yep, we are moving through a service change in November. Please let me stress that we would prefer not to make this service change. This service change has been made necessary by our hopefully well-publicized operator shortage. So we are short operators, right around 150 on a base of right around 1,100. And unfortunately, this means that because, quite frankly, we have been missing trips due to the operator shortage, and we certainly want to avoid that at all costs. So what we have done is we've made the difficult decisions to try to pare down some parts of our routing. In particular, that means we have eliminated some express routes, and we have also moved some of the frequencies of some routes down. So for instance, from a 15-minute routing to a 30-minute routing. And also, we have also shaved off some late night services in certain areas. We have made a concerted effort to try to spread these service impacts equally all over the system. Of course, I have heard from several different council people saying that, why are you only cutting in my district? That is not the case. We are looking at some cuts all throughout different districts, and of course, but we're happy to answer any questions about that. And I do have staff available to follow up with folks on that basis. However, we are also replacing some of those options, for instance, the late night service in particular, with supplemented service through our contract with VIA. So VIA, of course, is a third-party contractor, similar to Uber and Lyft type modeling, that have vans that can go out on on-demand. It's called on-demand service, where we can supplement service in some of those areas where we have had to, kind of pull service back. And that is available. We are enhancing our contract with VIA, and they have gone through some specific operator hirings to try to move some of their bandwidth and capacity up to be sure that they can handle some of the service challenges that we are asking them to pick up. And I have done with staff an analysis of some of these, and we're hoping that it would be seamless, but I do not expect it to be. Any service change does mean that there are some bumps in the road. We would prefer not to make the service change, but it is something that we need to do. Fundamentally, what we need to have happen is we need to be sure when it says a bus or train will arrive, that it does arrive. And the problem with a operator shortage of this capacity is that we were essentially missing trips, typically late night trips, and this becomes untenable. We weren't able to make the schedule that we were advertising. So we needed to pull back and be realistic in an effort to try to be transparent with the public and move forward in a service design that is sustainable. Now, I would also note that we are moving into essentially what is normally a slight lull in the transit environment. So from November to really about February, we do see, especially in St. Louis, a lot of times corresponding with the weather, a little bit of a lull in our ridership anyway. So we did feel that this was an appropriate time for us to be realistic about those service reductions. And then on top of that, we are doing everything we can to continue to go out and recruit new customers to be brought on. And please, if you could, I would really appreciate it if anybody would refer any potential employee to work at metrostl.com. So we are holding job fairs, for instance, every single Saturday. We are out there doing everything we can to attract new employees on a very extraordinary basis. Our board has authorized a $2,000 signing bonus for new operators and mechanics. And we are hoping, and actually we're beginning to see some good movement in the recruiting classes to move some of that workforce up. The ultimate hope would be then that we would able to essentially reinvigorate our workforce requirements and be able to put this service back out on the street in the spring of 2022. But we really appreciate your patience with this. I do want to be very honest with everybody. You will hear from some individual customers who maybe their express route has been eliminated, or you will hear from some customers who maybe have some late night service that has been eliminated. This will happen. I want to be very upfront with you. We will do our best to deal with those individuals to try to make the adjustments that we can. And we're going to do everything we can and hopefully try to deliver consistent service. So I just want to be very honest with everybody about where we are headed in that direction. Obviously, that's top on the list. In the other areas, we are moving forward and doing fairly well. We actually are starting to recover some ridership, which of course is very frustrating to be in this circumstance where we have such an employment crunch. And we will be going over some of those areas in ridership as we move on. And I'm going to just pause right there on my introduction before we move on to financials. And just want to be sure, Chair, that there aren't any specific questions regarding my opening remarks.
Okay, thank you, Talby. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Talby Linda Camp. When you hire a new driver or hire drivers, how long does it take before they're actually able to drive on the transit system?
And it really takes a minimum of 2 weeks. And it depends on the class. We start with classes that are around 20 people. Of course, we do have to go through drug and alcohol screenings and, of course, appropriate police checks. And all of those filters tend to bog the process down a bit. But as you know, a 40-foot bus is not something to be trifled with. So we do have to get really highly qualified professionals, and that's why our pay rate tends to be very competitive. Our starting salary is actually $17.50 an hour, so that is above many of our competitors. As a matter of fact, it is $2.50 above Amazon, as an example. And that is a full benefits job with retirement and with healthcare, and then of course there's a signing bonus. Very quickly, our operators tend to move up. I will just tell you as an example, our average operator actually makes $24.83. So, and our average operator also has been with the company for 10 years. So what that tells you is that these are good long-term career type jobs, and we're very proud of our employees. They've been doing a very good job.
Colby, a couple of questions, and I know we discussed it a little and you just mentioned it, but we know that many of the buses that are being suspended completely and some of the others used to run until 11:40 p.m. And we know that VIA stops at 10 p.m. So what are going to be the options for people in that 1 hour to 2 hour service gap if there's no longer service there and there's no VIA?
So we are in the midst of negotiating a new VIA contract, and please, if you will, Jessica Gershman has joined the call, and she's actually with, I think, Ted in Ted's office there. So Jessica, since you're a little bit more of a specialist in this area, could you address that, please?
Sure.
Take your mask off.
Sure. Can you hear me, Kim?
I can.
Apologies, guys. I guess I was an attendee as well. I didn't have the right link. So Ted was gracious enough to share with me. So Kim, you're right that there's a couple markets like the 46 Tesson Ferry that will have a gap of an hour and a half service there. That would have been, I think, just one or maybe two trips. The ridership has been extremely low in those areas. And so those people, we will not have that coverage for that amount of time. We've talked with Mercy South, which is the main driver of any rides there. And we're working with them to figure out if trips can be shifted or how that works for their employee base. If it is, because that's generally second shift getting off work. So
That's my concern. So,
Yeah.
so there won't be any service coming out of Mercy South after 10 p.m. if they don't catch a VIA. Is that what you're saying?
Right. If a person we will continue to have our lift in place, which is 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. And that's, that safety net across the whole region and in specific corridors. So we're able to help get folks home who are having difficulty, and all of our field management and folks on Kevin's team have the ability to, in the field in real time, help a customer book a Lyft ride if they find themselves in that position. But for now, with the numbers that are extremely low, or really low numbers of riders for that one or two trips, it was a trade-off that we had to make. Now, the cool thing about VIA, as you know, is that there's a lot of flexibility. It's not a quarterly service change. You can kind of ramp up and make adjustments, particularly to span of service, much more quickly. So if we find that this is a real problem, we'll be able to adjust it. The new West Zone that we're going to be introducing later this month, we have it running through 11:30 p.m. for precisely this reason, Kim, to pick up folks who are getting off a medical shift around 11 and making sure they can get themselves home. The numbers are like 0 to 3, average daily boardings at some of these stops at those trips. So we'll see if that service is needed. You know what I mean? Like, if we're running basically service and nobody's riding it at that hour, I don't think that'll be the case, then we might adjust it. And conversely, in the market you're talking about, we might have to figure out a way to ramp up. We're ramping up the fleet for VIA, so we're increasing the wheelchair accessible vehicles and the regular vehicle count. And so that's going to give us a lot more flexibility to be able to flex and say, we need to enhance this evening market. So I hope that helps.
So who do the VIA drivers report to? Do they report to VIA or do they report to Metro Transit? Who's managing the operators of VIA?
VIA is. So they're independent contractors of VIAs. And that's the model that we use because we do not have the available complement of drivers in our region. VIA does it differently in different places. But here, VIA contracts these drivers, trains them, of course, does all the screening and training. And then they basically lease out these vehicles on a weekly basis for the shifts that they're assigned. So it's a really interesting, it's called turnkey or transportation as a service, a TAAS model, TAAS. And yeah, we are not involved with their employment, but of course the terms and characteristics of who our drivers are, who are out on the road assisting our customers, we do have input in that.
I'm just curious because we're hearing some comments about the unprofessionalism of VIA drivers. So I just was curious who manages the actual VIA operator, the VIA operators. Yeah. The other thing is, Jessica, what is the average wait time for a VIA, and how often is a rider told there's no via available in the county area?
So VIA is currently only operating in the county. The average wait time is 10 to 12 minutes. That's the ETA is the metric there. So from booking to your van showing up, it's about 11 or 12 minutes. We have set that at 20-minute service, just to, because sometimes it's more, obviously 12 is an average. So, knowing that a lot of our bus service right now is in that 30-minute cadence, we feel that a 20-minute on-demand pace is acceptable for riders and sort of in the realm of what they might be used to. And then Kim, in terms of kind of the equivalent of a missed trip, it's about 5%. I think it's 4 to 5%. I don't have that figure right in front of me, but I was just looking it up on Friday. So of the times that a person calls in to book a trip, about 5% of the time they'll get a no driver available, which is extremely frustrating, of course, right? And so we definitely hear about every one of those cases. We get a call, we see the tweet, we're receiving all of those, and we directly put that in the ear of VIA, and they figure out what's going on with their driver. So they have like a really rigorous, it's not our point system, but it's a way of figuring out if basically like a 3 strikes system for their drivers. And so they do have to disaffiliate, as they call it sometimes. And what they've been in the process of doing since late August is hiring up their driver pool, increasing the wheelchair accessible vehicle training of their driver pool, and basically just like ramping up and being so they can keep those drivers that are not soliciting complaints like that. But the one twist on that missed trips metric is that a lot of times that's 5% of requested bookings. So not of customers or rides. So, I could have trouble booking my trip and then try again in 2 minutes and it would work because the driver came off break or something like that. So they don't have that metric captured, but it's relatively low, folks that are having trouble. Does that answer the question?
It does. I have a lot more questions, so maybe I'll just send them to you directly, Jessica, in an email for clarification if you'd like, if that would be easier for everyone. I don't want to keep everyone on the line.
Sure.
I do have one more question though, and this might be to you, Toby, or to Jessica. Right now we're in an operator shortage, and that is the reasoning for the suspension of some of these routes and the reduction in other routes. What is your projected time frame to ramp back up to, let's just call it full service? I'm sure you guys have more of a technical term, but what are you projecting these service suspensions and reduced service, how long that will last?
Well, I know we were looking, as I explained a little bit earlier, to try to get through the winter season. So looking at potentially ramping back in the spring of 22. So Jessica, when's that service change event?
It would be mid-June. That would be our hope, that we would sort of start the next fiscal year in a better position than now.
And I remember just in internal discussions that we would be discussing about, knowing where we were from a factual standpoint in April. In other words, we'd know by then how many operators we were able to attract so that we could then move to that decision. Because there has to be some lead time, of course, having to do with our union contracts of reestablishment of, for instance, it's called a run pick. And we have to be ready and in advance for that. So what we have been discussing in this office, as a matter of fact, is, well, maybe our good read time would be right around April, to try to see where we were at the time. What's the effect? How bad is it? How many employees have we been able to attract by that time? I am optimistic, but I'm also trying to be realistic, Kim. I do want to stress this is a difficult situation. I think that our pay rates are extraordinary and very positive, but it's a very tough environment right now, no doubt.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any more questions, Deborah. Thanks.
Kim. You sure you don't want to host?
Thanks for the offer, though.
Okay, just one question, Toby or Jessica, what is the age requirement for your bus drivers?
So our normal drivers do require a CDL, and CDL licensing in Missouri specifically is, I believe, 25. Isn't that right, Jessica?
Could that be a problem for you?
Yes, it is a problem. So we have looked at trying to see if lightening that CDL age requirement could be lessened in order to increase our employment roles. But still, when we are recruiting for folks when they're underneath that age, we have been moving them into other employment positions, whether that, for instance, we have a couple of different roles, especially, for instance, on the mechanics or maintenance side, where folks who are, if they're 18 or 19 years old and they wanted to do, for instance, the bus prep before it goes out on the road, those are very good jobs to, for instance, train people up to that level. I will just to be very honest with you, sometimes when I talk to a manager, Deborah, and I say, hey, we're thinking about lowering that to lower age people, they literally shake, okay? Because I'll be very honest with you, they're big vehicles, and there is some maturity that people need to have in dealing with not only with a very big vehicle, but also in dealing with the public. And I want to be, sometimes a lack of maturity means that we have almost as much problems with drivers who are not qualified. And so it's just a very difficult friction point, and I have asked about it before, actually several months ago, about seeing, for instance, because some state legislators asked, is there anything we can do to help you? And I had went back to staff and talked to them about the CDL requirements as far as age, and if, for instance, that could be brought down in the states of Illinois or Missouri. But right now we are not doing that. We're moving those individuals. If we get someone who's just 20, we have plenty of other jobs for them to move into, and maybe graduating to an operator's position is something that they could do.
Okay, thank you. The reason I asked that was because my understanding is that the requirement for truck drivers is 21, and they're looking at trying to lower to 18, which I think is really scary. But and I thought they had to have the same requirements as a bus driver.
No, you're right, Deborah. I'm sorry. I said 25. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. It is 21. But yes, the same friction point. An 18-year-old can drive a tank, so sometimes I think maybe they could drive a bus. But
That's the argument. Yeah.
so it's a very difficult. I want to be respectful, though. When I talk to the head of Metro Bus, to Ternice Winters, literally she has she looks like she's seen a ghost. I did ask her that. Because very just typically, when I've talked to some of those, or to one of our TSMs, our transit service managers, they've said, look, that maturity is a big difference, and these are big vehicles, and they require certain skills. Not everybody can do what we do. We have some folks who we move through the training, and we do lose some. We lose some to drug testing. We lose some on police checks, and we lose some just because they're not reliable and don't show up on time. And as you know, having your bus show up on time is important. So there's these different problems. And what we've seen, or what a lot of my managers tell me, is that when you're trying to get a 19-year-old do that as opposed to a 21-year-old, it's a big difference. And if I can go in the way, way back machine and remember what I was like 19 or 21, is a big difference. So I think that's the point.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions? Okay. Ted, were you able to see my comments on the next topic, proactive PR?
That's why I actually asked Patty to come to kind of talk to that side of our business. So I'm going to kind of lend it to Patty to talk.
Okay, I sent you an email. Did you get that? Kind of responding to where I was coming from with that. Did you see it?
I honestly, Miss Carter, I don't know that I did, but I will look real quick.
Oh, that's okay. I'll let you go ahead.
All right, Patty?
If you don't
Sure.
touch on it, then I'll come back and ask a question.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So we just wanted to explain briefly at Ms. Carter's request what we're doing proactively as far as letting people know, our riders, the community, the media, about this upcoming service change. We have rider alerts installed on all the trains and on all the buses. We have 14 H-frame signs, the great big ones that you can't miss, at our impacted transit centers that connect with these routes that there are changes at. Last week, our planning team started riding the buses in the evening on those specific routes which are going to be impacted, so they could talk one-on-one with our customers who are on those routes after 8 o'clock at night to give them their options and to let them know about VIA and to try VIA before the service change actually goes into effect. This week, that outreach moves to targeted transit centers. As we continue to prepare our riders, we'll be reaching out to them at the impacted transit centers. As we promised our riders and the media, today we were able to post the new maps for those routes that are impacted and the new schedules, which our customers have been waiting on. Those were finalized and prepared and put on the website. We've distributed a news release, and another news release will be coming out with those specific details. We've also done a blog, and we'll be doing another blog or two before the 29th. We've been promoting and will continue to promote this service change on our social media platforms. Several targeted social media campaigns went live today, so we're continuing to reach out to our customers and to our stakeholders. We are adding a rider alert that will push notifications to our transit app, which is where we tell our customers to go if they're waiting to see if the bus is coming or not coming. And Talby has done several media interviews about the upcoming service change, and we continue to use every opportunity, whether it's radio, TV, or to our print media outlets, to let them know about this service change and how important it is. And that's kind of a wrap on what we're doing, Ms. Carter, as far as our proactive reach. Do you all have any questions?
Ted, do you have anything to add on that?
Actually, I do, just a couple things. So we are constantly monitoring all of our media channels as well. And as we see those stories that may be neutral or negative, we're actually going back on those as well. So the other side of it is when we start to look at our proactive approach, work at metrostl.com is a big push of ours. And so every opportunity that we have to get that story out there, as far as our second Saturdays, anytime that we're at a job fair, those things are major pieces to what we're looking at. We also remind people that this is something that is a national thing that we're experiencing. You know, we've been hearing from APTA, the American Public Transit Association, and seeing the experience that's happening in transit across North America. And you know, we're not alone in this situation, but we're looking for best practices. And then finally, the other thing that we've done is over this week, all of the Metro bus stops that are impacted by this change as well are being redecaled, so they have additional information about this change and that they can get in touch with our team in the process too.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to new business, and not sure that there's much that you can say now about the infrastructure bill, but if there's something that you want to just talk about briefly, you're welcome to do that.
Shoot. Yeah, sure. I can talk about it. This is the fun part. The infrastructure bill has several individual tranches that will be favorable to what we do. One, the biggest funding portion is actually 33.45 billion. Yes, I said with a B. Funding for what is our traditional formula funding, which is also referenced as 5307. Now, please note that this, as all of the infrastructure bill, is through several fiscal years. So actually 4 in particular. So that money is to be spread out over a period of time. So there's good funding in 5307, which is our traditional funding for instance, on the heavy transit side, for instance, for LRV vehicles, for upgrades to stations, for these kind of infrastructure. And that would also be available for potential expansion of light rail corridors. There's also 2 other tranches. There's also a 5310. Now that is for elderly and disabled passengers. So that's traditionally for us used for call a ride vehicles. So there is a significant tranche of money in there. And there's also some specific funding for electrification of the system. And as you know, our electrification through the Brentwood facility in St. Louis County, working through the electric buses that are mostly 14 of them on the Grand Line, our #1 bus line. And that's been working very, very well. So we are looking at doing further electrification, not only through rolling stock at the Brentwood facility, which would be mostly St. Louis County routes, but also looking at some electrification at the DeBoliver facility, which, although that is in the city, several of those routes that call into the DeBoliver facility do go out to the county as well. So all of that infrastructure bill are very, very positive. And of course, our job is essentially to look at that infrastructure bill and figure out how we get interesting projects on the desks of our legislators and move them up through the FTA process. And we intend to do that. So that's just a quick thumbnail if that works.
Works for me. Any questions? Thank you. Kim, the next topic was something that you brought up in our last meeting, and I don't know if we can deal with it today or not because it was with the other Jessica that she was going to provide you with a report for St. Louis County and VIA as far as the number of riders.
Right.
Did you ever get that information?
I did not.
Jessica, can you help us with that, or do we need to wait?
Right, no, absolutely. So some of what I shared earlier when we were discussing VIA was in that realm. I'm happy to share a little bit more. So you're looking for actual riders or growth or?
So Jessica, we asked for numbers with regards to VIA in St. Louis County since the inception of VIA as that first last mile filler, and how that looks, because we look at your ridership every month and the trajectory, you're still down about 45%. So we wanted to see what the VIA ridership looked like in St. Louis County. And so Jessica was going to provide us a report on that. We haven't received that yet.
Sure. So right, and she prepared me for that. And she's actually, I'm not sure if Ms. Carter, she informed you, she's meeting with county staff right now on a different topic. So that's why I'm here. But yeah, Kim, if you're looking for the full arc of this first 14 months, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we carry about 100 to 150 riders a day recently, and have continued to see growth month over month, both in the unique number of passengers and the rides that are booked. So I have in front of me more recent numbers, but if you want something that kind of shows you month to month since I suppose it would be June 2020, I can also provide you with something like that. But
you guys, I was just gonna say, if you guys can just email us the report so we can see the actual numbers in ridership, that would be really helpful for us as commission members, I think.
Sure, absolutely. And just sort of frame of reference, October 2021 was 2,679 completed rides. Can you hear me through my mask? So that's about a 2/3 increase from the year before. But just for a frame of reference, this is such a gap filler and a complement to bus service and rail service, right? So we're in a completely different ballpark in terms of the volume of people we're carrying.
I think we understand that completely. We just, we've been hearing about VIA for 14 months now, and we've not actually seen numbers. So I think as commission members, it would really be helpful to see those numbers.
Okay, we can send you some bar graphs of the trends of ridership over
Sure.
time. That'll help.
I think anything would be great. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've covered recruitment and ridership trends. Is there anything else that you want to add on that? If not, we'll go to Colorado.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a report on Colorado?
So the Colorado report, I think we would be sharing the September, this August or September numbers. So we continue to see the same trends of challenges with operators and increased cancellations, no-shows, and denials. Thank you, Ted. So this is, yeah, September. We had 36,000 passenger trips scheduled, and about 15,000 of those were resulted in denials. We have seen the ridership levels sort of year over year even out. They continue to increase a little bit month over month. And the recruitment efforts that you're seeing on the bus side are just as earnestly and urgently happening in paratransit as well. So that driver force is a big area of focus to increase our available operators to be able to increase the rides that we're providing. Are there specific, because you have the numbers as well in your booklet, were there specific Colorado questions, Ms. Carter?
I do not have any, Jessica. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Tammy, I think you're up.
Okay, thank you. So I thought I would hit just a few highlights on revenue and expenses year to date through September 30th. So first to note was passenger revenue, as we've been talking about ridership. We are down, our actuals are about where they were last year this time. And so we're down about 53%. When we look at sales tax, though, both for the city and the county, they're coming in better than expected. The city's slightly up and the county's down by about a little under 5%. The biggest thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the federal funding line, which is where we get our stimulus funding for CARES, ARPA, and CARISA funding. And you'll notice that we had a huge jump there. And the reason for that is that there's some additional money available, possibly federal funds. And one of those requirements was that we had already pulled into our funding 90% of the CARES funding. So we went through and did that because we know that we are going to use those funds this year. So we went ahead and pulled the funds in ahead of time as deferred revenue, and as it's earned throughout this year, you'll see that number reduce. And then on the expense side, a lot of what you're seeing, what I wanted to draw attention to, wages and benefits, our biggest item, is about right on budget. But when you look at services, we look like we're down about 4.4 million. Some of that is timing, the timing and some of the way we budget sometimes. So we calendarize versus actually budgeting when those expenses are going to hit. So it looks like we are a lot lower than what we probably will come in at. And so that is one of the reasons for that. Also under maintenance, just like we're having trouble getting employment or employees, they are too. So some of them aren't able to meet their obligations. And so some things are just being delayed a little bit or slower to hit. So that's causing some of the issue there. Materials and supplies, it looks like we're down about $3 million. Some of that is supply chain issues and getting those parts in. And then the other big item on the expense side is casualty and liability. And we believe that's timing too, and just in when those expenses will be incurred. And so that's my report this afternoon. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Tammy. Any questions?
Chair, can I just have two very quick comments? So I just want to highlight that
Yes, sir.
okay.
Go ahead, Toby.
Thank you. That the strategy that Tammy's referencing, so we're essentially advancing the draw to be sure that we hit some of the deadlines essentially on the federal requirement in the hopes of maximizing what our percentage share is. So this is a common strategy that other areas are using in order to maximize their drawdown. So it's just very important that that's kind of the detail there. That's our job, is to try to get as much federal money in the door as possible. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're kind of moving things around so that we're sure to meet the deadlines that are associated with a couple of the federal tranches. And also, in addition to that, we are, yes, not only do we have an issue with the availability of operators, we are seeing some effect on some of our rolling stock associated with some of parts availability. Now that's okay right now. We're not seeing any issues associated with that right now, but we are having some delays associated with, like others, even in the private sector, that are seeing in the availability of parts for rolling stock. So it's just a concern, but we're just trying to manage through that right now.
Thank you. Okay. Patty or Ted, anything to add? Marketing?
No, not really. You've got the report in front of you. Most of the stuff is what we've been doing for the past couple months, looking at September. So everything's pretty much in there. You will notice, though, under the notable headlines, there's a couple of them that are in italics. And the reason we did that was when we start to see that share of sentiment and seeing that negative pop up and rear its ugly little head, what we're seeing is that there's, the narrative out there and the false pieces that are there are having an impact on that negative side. So in both of those instances, while we only see 2 articles like that, they do spread through the social media. And so Team Patty, I would say, is the one that's really working these to help us to change those titles on those pieces. The unfortunate part is once a headline gets out there, it's difficult for it to take back what you've seen. But we still make sure that we're touching base with those media outlets, explaining what's wrong with the title. And just like anyone, the media is out there to get clicks on their websites or on news stories. So that has an impact on that side of it. But the rest of the stuff is all there as far as our Marcom activities. I actually, in the back, showed you our digital strategy for a quarter and how that's working, which it's working really well. And it's, again, really focusing on public safety as well as the benefits of working at Metro Transit. As far as videos, I'll share some videos with you in the next week or so. I hesitate to do it on this channel only because it gets garbled and it's not always running at its best. So I think it's best that I just share those with each one of you. You can watch them at your leisure. Anyway, unless you have questions, I'll be quiet.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Ray, anything you'd like to share with us? Is he gone?
Oh, no, I'm here. No report,
okay.
Ms. Carter. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for hanging in there with us, all right?
Oh, you
Adam,
bet.
are you awake?
Yeah, kinda. I was thinking about taking a nap, but
You did good. You did good.
I tried. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think I have much to add here. I think we're just plugging along as we do.
Okay. Keep plugging. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Last but not least, Kevin, are you going to share some comments about the third quarter report?
Yeah, absolutely can. I'd like to let you know that Captain Webb is on vacation. She'll be out through the 29th. Lieutenant Joe Cruz, who is the city of St. Louis lieutenant assigned to the police task force, is in command. And I'm representing Metro Public Safety today and the police task force. So if you have any questions regarding law enforcement activities, I can do my best to answer that for you. Has everybody gotten a copy of our quarter 3 incident, Metrolink incident numbers?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So just,
I haven't gotten it, and I'm Linda Camp.
hey, Linda, we'll get a copy out to you. Or one of your colleagues maybe has it that they can share with you. But I'm just kind of going to walk through how the report is structured. Everything in the report, obviously, Deborah and to the rest of the committee members, it comes from the police task force. It's a combined report between St. Louis County, the city of St. Louis, and St. Clair County, Illinois. And page 1 of the report is a summation of total incidents across the Metrolink system. This does not include Metro Bus. This is Metrolink. So because this is what the law enforcement task force covers, they don't cover the bus side, they cover the train side. In quarter 3, we realized 153 total incidents in a 3-month period. And we've highlighted in there that our overall incident rate is 9 incidents per 100,000 boardings. But again, what I want to draw your attention to is that of the 153 total incidents in quarter 3, 65% of the incidents were the result of self-initiation or proactive security or policing. So let me give you an example of that. So let's say that one of our fare enforcers makes contact with somebody and they're providing a false name or false information. So law enforcement gets involved and they run the individual's name. And let's say the individual comes back with an arrest warrant for whatever. And then upon taking that individual into custody, let's say that law enforcement discovers contraband such as drugs. So that would be an incident that would be recorded, but would be self-initiated by security or law enforcement. So the fact that 65% of the 153 total incidents were self-initiated, meaning they didn't realize into a crime, we didn't realize a victim, we didn't receive a call for service, to me is pretty encouraging. So again, you can go through the summary page and walk through kind of how the incidents were broken down. I think it's also notable that 81% of the total incidents were standard of conduct violations. So very minor code of conduct or poor behavior or disruptive behavior. They weren't serious incidents by any stretch of the imagination. And again, the summation page specifically outlines how those incidents are broken down. Now, whatever is reflected on the first page of the report is broken down by jurisdiction. So we can go to St. Louis County, and you'll see in quarter 3 we realized 92 total incidents. Your boardings within St. Louis County were up 11% quarter over quarter. And we have about 16 incidents per 100,000 Metrolink boardings in St. Louis County. And if you go down and you take a look at the incidents per location, again, I'm sure your attention will go to North Hanley, but you have to understand that we have a high proactive rate by the St. Louis County Police at that location. So a lot of the 58 incidents, over 60% of them, of the 58 incidents recorded, are proactive by the county police at that location or the security elements of that location. So that's what we want. We want security. We want law enforcement to engage, and that's what we're seeing happening at this point. But again, the overall ridership in quarter 3 was about 15% increase. over the past quarter. And again, in St. Louis County, it was about 11%. So I think we're holding very well. As a matter of fact, I'm very encouraged by the performance of our contract security team on Metrolink, our law enforcement teams on Metrolink, and that's allowed our public safety department the flexibility to kind of redeploy some of our internal transit security assets to focus more on the bus operations side, which will continue to grow as well. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions regarding the report or anything regarding public safety or law enforcement activities on the system.
Thanks, Kevin. I do have one question. Tammy, when you mentioned the 53% downturn in ridership, are you not referring to the same quarter as Kevin is referring to?
So I'm looking back and I'm actually comparing to prior to COVID. So that's really the difference. I'm kind of I'm tracking against before COVID even happened. So when you really look at the financial statements, I actually closed that book. It shows from what we budgeted, we're 21% down. So we budgeted at a 45% decline, if that makes sense.
So when Kevin says there's a 15% increase, where's that coming from?
Hey, let me interject here just real quick, Tammy, if you don't mind.
Yep.
So we're looking, Deborah, in quarter 3, Metrolink wide, so the entire system, about a 15% increase over the previous quarter. So what she's reflecting is a more historical number than what we're reflecting in this report. We're just doing a quarter over quarter analysis. Does that make sense?
Not yet. Okay. Okay. Because I thought she broke it down to 21% decrease. So I don't know how you have a decrease and increase. I'm just a little confused.
So my numbers also, my numbers would include bus, rail, and call ride. And also I think he's looking specifically at that. He said third quarter, where I'm looking at the first quarter. So I'm looking at through September 30th of the first quarter.
And again, our report, like she just mentioned, focuses on Metrolink.
Okay. All right. Now I think I got it. Any other questions? Okay. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for their attendance. I want to thank everybody for their patience with the scheduling. St. Louis County is going through some major changes, and some of which they have not advised me of. So we've had some problems setting up meetings and getting things scheduled. So I appreciate it. We should be back on track for December. And I just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you,
Double
Deborah.
rate.
Thank you all for your patience. Hey, Ted,
Thank you,
can I
Ms.
ask you a
Deborah.
question before you leave?
Sure.
Okay.
Did you say Tammy?
Everybody else, please.
No, Ted.
Okay, sorry. I'm getting off the off the line. I'm
You
sorry.
want it Before somebody else says your name.
Have a good one,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
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 Okay, Ted, I think my concern was that I know that there's some really good PR out there with respect to the service changes, but it seems that our messages are a little bit delayed versus those that the public is seeing. So I think I saw a couple of things a week or two ago about the service changes that were really discouraging. And then, Patty, you said this week or last week or whatever, you all put out social media. Okay, so are we behind? I mean, by this time, with the messages already out there a week and a half, and
I can take my mask off now. So we are the bearers of the message, and we wait for it to come from the rest of the organization. And
Got it.
there's
You don't have to say anymore. I got it.
yeah, I mean, and it's frustrating to us as well, because what we get is typically, the final version, and it honestly, it's a frustration for Patty and I, that other, it's been messaged. I know that it was in the board report. It was covered by some other individuals as well. So yeah, I would
Okay.
love to be able to get farther out in front of stuff. But again, we're the ones that are on the back end waiting for somebody to give us a message. But we always try to improve on that too. And I don't really have an excuse, Ms. Carter, on that. But I guess the other side is, and maybe this would help too with the transportation committee, when we see these things coming or we see something like that hitting, in somebody else's website, maybe getting that information to you sooner would be beneficial. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
At this point, I don't have any because I really understand that your hands are somewhat tied. You can only do what you're told to do, and when you're told to do it. I think that maybe it's something that you may want to discuss with management, especially about the impact that it has. Because I think that you guys knew these changes were coming. So you should have been out there way ahead of, everybody else saying all these great things that, like I said, I'm hearing on podcasts. And, like I said to you, when my kids told me, Mom, you're such a dinosaur, because I watch the nightly news, constantly. And they're like, oh, my God. I mean, they're like, what is nightly news? So, perhaps it doesn't have the same impact, but it is out there. And, and I'm hearing you guys saying that, you're hearing the same thing too. But I think that because, you are aware of this prior to the social media and the news outlets knowing this, that you can get ahead of it. And I think that maybe we need to discuss the importance of being able to do that.
Yeah, with everything that we know that's going on, typically the strategy that Patty and I have is finding every good news story that we can put out about Metro Transit, especially like about our operators in that, and really trying to make sure that creates some, not cover, but it's an impactful way for us to talk. Yeah, it's a tough balance to try to get ahead of those pieces, and but I will have a conversation kind of with our planning team in Metro Transit.
Does that make sense? I mean, does that make sense to you, Ted?
Oh, all the time. I mean, we don't like, especially for myself and Patty, we don't like being behind the 8 ball. We like being in front of stuff. And we work as much as we can, based upon the information that we receive. But there's many times where, the conversation that we have internally is more of, okay, service changes are coming. And then it's
when can we get the information? When can we get the information? Deborah, we've been pushing really hard. Here's the way that it works. Our planning department, I mean, obviously the service change dates are published a year ahead of time. Now this year they've tweaked those dates a couple of times, but traditionally what they do is they promise to put the maps and the schedules on our website 2 weeks before the service change begins. That's the way that they've always operated. So we know, working back from that, when we want our first news release out, when we're going to start pushing on social, how many times we're going to send reminder news releases, blogs, and more social when we want to have those rider alerts out. This service change has been a little bit more complex in that we knew it was going to be larger than previous service changes. So we kept asking planning for the finalization of those changes. And honestly, they're hearing different input from different people inside the company and outside the company that have vested interest to what it's doing to their routes. And so they just keep tweaking and tweaking. So even though our board talked about it in a couple of operations committee meetings and another board meeting, All, Deborah, we could say publicly is that a service change is coming, and keep it generic in that we are going to adjust
got
the
it.
frequencies, so
I
Yeah.
got it.
But
yeah.
I think, Ms. Carter, one of
No,
the things that we need to pass back to our team in the planning side is that once that news is out, 2 weeks is not sufficient for us to try to recover from that conversation.
it is not. No.
And, Patty and I both agree with you. It's like, this is our news to release. And
That's right.
so when we're not at that point and they know that this information is getting out, it's a stain on who we are. And we have to work all the harder to be able to kind of change that.
And our customers want those specific details about their routes, which of
Yeah.
course we did not have available to us, nor was it going to be on the
That's what it
website.
sounds
So
like. That's
yeah.
exactly what it sounds like, and that's not good.
No.
It's really unfortunate because as a commissioner, I see and I hear all the good things you are doing. So I get really, really frustrated when I see, them, really cutting you down.
Yeah.
Because you know what, I know all the good work that you're doing, and I want everybody to know all the good work that you're doing, but I just don't. I don't know that it's getting out there.
We're doing
Okay, let's go home.
Yeah, we're doing everything we can, Ms. Carter. But I appreciate
We are.
I appreciate you because you're thinking about it, and somewhere in our conversations, we're gonna make some breaks on this. And you're gonna be the one that's helped us to do that. So I appreciate the conversations.
Well, thank you for saying that. Change is hard and slow, and I will say that you know what, we have you, not me, but Metro has made some fantastic changes. So I can see it. You know what? I guess I'm just pushing you harder. More. Okay. So
Soon you're going to be coming to work for us.
I know you want to go home. James, are you late, baby? What happened? Your alarm clock didn't go off?
No, the last email I got said the meeting started at 5 o'clock.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
the
didn't
email
feel
I got today,
like that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
I got an email from somebody that said the meeting started at 5 o'clock by Zoom. I was here at 4. That's why I didn't sign on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you know what? There's a lot of madness. You guys go home. Talk to you
Yeah,
later.
I got several
Okay.
emails.
Thank you so much for your time.
Good night.
Okay,
Bye,
thank
Deborah. Thank you.
All right, good night.
There's a lot going on with St. Louis County trying to get these meetings set up. And that's why, we've been fumbling with it. And so maybe somebody sent it out to you from St. Louis
It didn't
County.
come from-
I don't
it
know,
didn't-
James.
Yeah, it didn't come from you. The first email I got from you said it was going to be in the building. And then I got a second one that said it was going to be virtual, but it said 5 o'clock. And I said, that's not our regular time, but I assumed that's what it was. That's why I'm just now signing on. I was sitting here at 4 o'clock.
Okay, well, if you ever see 5 o'clock again, you know what? Maybe it was me and I hit the wrong key. But anyway, it's always at 4. I'm trying not to
That's what I
change
thought.
that. But if you see that, you know what? Please make sure you contact me because I do make mistakes.
Yeah, I got
But this time I don't think.
I got 2 or 3 different emails. So I assume I
Right.
said
Right, because I was having a hard time. I was having a hard time with this. I mean, they won't let us come back in. They won't tell us when we can come back in.
Yeah, I know.
So it's just crazy. And then they've got all these regulations about, trying to set up conferences and everything has changed. So I've really been struggling with this.
I know. I saw emails. Okay, so now I know
Okay.
it's be at 4 o'clock no matter what.
Right. Okay. How you been?
I'm doing okay, and we're not coming back into the building, right?
They will not tell me. They won't give me a definite answer.
Because I know you sent one email out that said we would be. I got an email from somebody. He said would be at 4 o'clock in the county council meeting room. And then I got a second one that said no, it's going to be at 5 o'clock virtual. So anyway, All right. Sorry about
Okay.
it. I would have
All
been
right.
on.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, same to you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.